We'd like to start by thanking our sponsor for this episode, Best Fiends. Best Fiends is a mobile puzzle game that is challenging and fun. It's a casual game, so perfect for unwinding at the end of the day or playing while you're boiling the kettle. It's been great as a fun way to keep us connected while we're apart this year.
We can even challenge each other. We can't fly to visit each other at the minute, so this is the perfect game to play to keep us connected.
We've been racing each other through the levels on our downtime. It's no wonder Best Fiends is 5-star rated with over 100 million downloads. The in-game challenges make it feel new every month, and you don't even need to use Wi-Fi.
This mobile puzzle game is so much more than your average mobile puzzle game.
Download Best Fiends for free on the Apple App Store or Google Play. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends.
Trust me, you don't want to miss out on this game. Welcome to Crime Laps. I'm Eileen.
And I'm Charlie.
We'd like to start by thanking Anne Jenkins McLean for speaking with us and trusting us to share her daughter's story. Anne is an incredibly strong and resilient woman, an incredible mother who did all she could to protect her child, but we can't always be there. We'd also like to thank Thomas McLean for sharing his memories of his cousin, who he loved to bits, and always will. Christine Mason Miller once said, "At any given moment, you have the power to say, this is not how the story is going to end." In Ireland, 1 in 4 women who have been in a relationship have experienced abuse at the hands of their current or former partner. Almost 3/4 of domestic abuse incidences involve repeat offending. 27% of these victims are attacked 3 or more times, so it wouldn't be unbelievable to assume you know someone who is in an abusive relationship. In some cases, the victims are able to escape, start new lives and move on. But in more cases than you'd like to imagine, the victims aren't so fortunate. This is Stolen Chance.
In the south side of Dublin City is an area that has been coupled with the brewing trade as far back as the 17th century. The Liberties is a historically working-class neighbourhood in the inner city. Although it is a place ingrained on the tourist must-visit list and the streets are flooded with new faces, the residents know each other and take care of one another. Dublin City sprung from 2 settlements along the River Liffey. The Liberties is one of Dublin's oldest neighbourhoods, having been developed in the 12th century. It was a marketplace and a meeting point. People would trade, barter and banter with one another. In 1759, the Guinness family built St James's Gate, the world's largest brewing distillery. Other notable brewers in the area were whisky creators Powers and Jameson. The streets are lined with chimney stacks and flats. From the days of the tenements, the locals of St James's Street and the surrounding area have been tightly knit and bound together by more than just their address. Amanda Jenkins was Anne Jenkins McLean's only child. Born in the summer of 1980, her friends and family knew her as Mandy. Mandy was adored by her family and the people she knew growing up. She was a kind and good-natured girl all through her life. Mandy's mother Anne spoke with us about her.
People say we were more like sisters than mother and daughter. Yeah, we went everywhere together. And all that's taken from me now. The funny thing is, like from the time Mandy was going to school, as she was growing up, we were very protective over her. We were careful who she palled with, and people to this day even say, God, Anne, we're so protective over Mandy and the way she had to be taken from us. She was kind of a bit shy. Like, she wouldn't answer you back or that. I think as Mandy was getting older, she kind of had a bit of a complex. She was very confident in herself. She loved Irish dancing. She won loads of medals for Irish dancing and done the majorettes. and she was in a lot of variety shows. Yeah, she loved doing all them things. And she'd say, I'm going down now to my club shows because I'm going to be a singer someday. She left school when she was 16. She hated when she went to secondary school that she lost interest in school. But she left school when she was 16, but she got a job straight away. Now, she didn't lie around. She wasn't idle for long. She started, her first job was in Subways. And then from there, she worked in the Clarendon pub in Chattenham Street as a barmaid. And then I got her into Shane. She was a chef. And then she went to work in the vegetable shop for Kathleen, her friend's mother. I used to go over to Mandy and I'd sit in the shop with her and give her a dig out. And the kids would be coming in. How are you, Mandy? There's the banana. But don't say anything to Kathleen because Kathleen lived in the flats. Or there's an apple, or there's an orange. Don't say anything to Kathleen. Oh, she loved kids, Mandy. She loved kids. The kids talk about her. Oh, we remember Mandy. She was very good to us and she throw us an apple or an orange. But we weren't allowed to tell Kathleen Fergal anything. She's very good natured. She'd do anything for anyone. Anyone. And she was running that shop for Kathleen. And she was working there then till she was taken.
Mandy's cousin Thomas told us about her too. They were incredibly close growing up. Here is what Thomas said.
What I can remember is all good. Never seen her doing any bad. I've never seen her doing anything. And she did, she was very good at it. She was always pleasant, she was always nice. If you rang Mandy, she'd be there. And we hadn't even got phones. What you're saying is what you got with Mandy. If you needed it and wanted it, go to Mandy. If she hadn't got it, she'd get it from somewhere just to help you. And she'd always leave herself stuck. Only for a good cause. Not for any of nonsense. Not for any of messing around. If you needed something for your kid, you needed this, you needed that, go and see Mandy. Even though she hadn't got much, none of us do. But back then we had nothing. All we had was each other. But when we stuck together, that was it, there was no stopping us. And she was always hands on for anything she done. There's no need for anyone to ever put her hands near her.
Thomas and Mandy were close in age and they got on so well. They were like twins. They had a special bond, closer than cousins, best friends. They had great fun together. Thomas remembers Mandy fondly and said that she was the boss and he was her right-hand man.
I had a right-hand girl because she had more balls than any of us. She had confidence. She had good looks. Like, for a good-looking girl like her, she never played on it or knew she was good looking. She's never snobby. Like, I've seen boys coming on to her men buying her points and she'd laugh at them or get me on. Or she'd buy them on. And she'd have the fun with them, cracking joke, and she'd let them know straight out, yeah, look, nothing's gonna happen. You can buy me all you want, but you won't be getting these off me. I said, what do you mean, Mandy? You're not wearing knickers. I said, no. And the two was a break, I started laughing. Is that your fella? And I said, no, that's my cousin. Do you mind if I mute your cousin? I was like, I don't mind. Can you get me a point? And Mandy would say, you Budweiser me out. I says, no, I got a double whiskey for you. She says, what? She says, well, I'm after getting a travel vodka for you. I says, where the fuck have you got me? So I think we're in the George. He said, you were real. I said, I went to the Jackman. He says, what the fuck has she got me? His lads all over me. I thought we were bleeding friends. Now, we're not against it. The opposite side. So, I mean, I just wasn't born for the team. But it was one of the best nights I had in my life. Oh, she was mental.
Thomas remembers Mandy taking him out to the George, one of the most popular gay bars in Dublin, They were both straight, but anywhere was a good time with Mandy.
Well, she was a good kid. And she was a good adult. And if she's still here today, the world would be a bit of a better place. Because she would have done good for the world. And all the cousins would feel the same. Every one of them. She'd always be there. And she was gas.
Thomas was Mandy's backup. One time, she was out with the DJ from Crumlin in his mum's car, and she asked him to pick Thomas up from Tala, one of the places in Dublin that has a bit of a reputation for being a little bit rough. Thomas got into the car and told us what happened.
I was showing off, he lifted a handbrake, the car slid around the roundabout and straight into a front car and took the pillar down. I just started laughing. Mandy started laughing. That's why you laughing. That's why you laughing. It's just because he thought you were out to get chased, that's why he was trying to get you away quick. I suppose he just thought I was one of them hoodlums from Tala. I forgot to tell him you're only coming from the boxing club. I just wanted to keep it as a secret weapon in case he fucked up. What do you mean? It's just a case, you know yourself. Cause, what's the deal? Cause it's double jab, left hand, right hook. But he was one of the good ones. Things didn't work out.
Mandy would go to Thomas for advice. They looked out for each other. She would ask him what he thought about the lads that she was seeing.
And she was very picky and very choosy who she got with. And she'd always ask my advice. Didn't even ask me advice about Stephen. But we already knew who he was. But Mandy made her own decisions. If Mandy liked someone or loved someone, she'd make her own decision.
Mandy got into a relationship with her friend's brother Stephen in 2003. Stephen Carney wasn't long out of prison, but Mandy always saw the good in people, and like many women, she believed she could change his ways. Mandy had a thing for helping people. She was going to adopt a young girl she knew in the area whose family member was ill and unable to care for her. Mandy kept the girl safe and out of trouble. She was planning on adopting her, but Stephen's criminal history meant that she couldn't. Mandy knew about Stephen's past, but felt as though it didn't define him. She loved him anyway. But things started to change shortly after they began seeing each other. Mandy began to lose her outgoing, social personality, especially around Stephen. Stephen would isolate her. Any time she wasn't with him, he would send her messages, asking her where she was and who she was with.
Well, she was a very jolly girl, very outgoing, and she was very happy in life until she met him. And that's when things started to change. He basically kept her away from all her friends, and he tried to keep her away from her family, but the one person he couldn't keep her away from was me. I stood up to him.
After isolating her from her friends, the emotional abuse escalated and Stephen hit Mandy. Mandy knew she could reach out to her mother, and she did. Anne warned Stephen not to put his hands on her daughter again, and he broke down in tears, promising that he never would. Mandy gave him another chance. He didn't deserve it, but that was the type of person Mandy was. She saw the best in everyone.
And what we found strange, that she wasn't coming up near me, she wasn't ringing me. I just thought she was happy, things were good. So she must have been put under serious threat not to see me or to see any of the family. Especially me, never mind the rest of the family, especially me. He must have had some hold over her.
Stephen soon fell back into his old controlling ways, and Mandy was getting fed up. In early October 2007, she told her mother that she was planning on ending things with Stephen Carney.
Kind of leading up to that week, I think he kind of knew there was something going down, because Mandy even said it to me. She says, "Ma'am," she says, she couldn't move from one side of the road to the other. He'd be ringing or texting, "Where are you? Who are you with? What are you wearing?" And the last time I was up with Mandy would have been on the Wednesday before he murdered her. And I didn't actually even want to go up to the apartment. And she says, Mama, please come up. She says, because he thinks you're not talking to him. And I wasn't really, but just to keep the peace, I went up, I had a cup of tea, and we were leaving. And Mandy walked me over to the bus stop. We weren't even 5 minutes out of the apartment. The bus stop was only across the road, and he texts, where are you? I says, Mandy, turn that phone off. I says, the cheek of him, I said. She says, Ma'am, she says, I'm really tired now, she said at this stage. She says, I'm thinking of walking away. And that's when I think you're better off, Mandy. Just walk away. And then on the Thursday morning, she went to work. Everything was grand. I rang her that night. I rang her on the Friday at about 8 o'clock. She wouldn't finish work until 8 o'clock. And everything was grand. I says, where's Stephen Carney? She says, he's out with some friends. He was supposed to be off the drink because he wasn't a very nice person when he had drink on him. And this friend that he was supposed to be out with, he doesn't drink, so that's what we kind of guessed that everything is grand, so he's off the drink. So we were talking away for about half an hour, and I said goodbye to her, told her I loved her, and I'd phone her the next day, which would have been on the Saturday.
Mandy worked 6 days a week in the fruit and veg shop for her friend's mum, Kathleen. She'd start work early and finish late in the evening. She spoke with her mum every night after. On Friday, 5th of October, they had a conversation about Stephen. Mandy was home alone after work, while he was out with friends. He had been off drink for a few months. Mandy had been worried about Stephen's binges before, but felt a sense of security knowing he was out with a friend who was sober. The next morning, Anne got a phone call from Stephen to say that Mandy was sick in bed and wouldn't be going to work. He said she was asleep and couldn't come to the phone.
So the Saturday morning came and Patrick's house phone rang, and he came upstairs. He said, Stephen Carney's on the phone. I just said to myself, there's something wrong because he barely rings me. So when I got onto the phone, I says, yeah, what's wrong, Stephen? Oh, I'm just ringing you to let you know Mandy's not going to work today. She's at home sick. And I said, what's wrong with her? She's just not feeling the best. So I said, well, can I talk to her? She's asleep. I said, well, right. I said, I'll ring her later on. Well, her phone is turned off. She's leaving it turned off in case Kathleen, our boss, rings her. And I said, well, then I'll ring you back later on, Stephen. I said, just to make sure she's okay. And he just says, yeah, that's fine. I rang back in the afternoon, couldn't get an answer. I rang Mandy's phone, her phone was off. And I kept ringing him, and eventually he answered. He says, yeah, I was just out in the shop getting whatever, milk or whatever. I says, is Mandy all right? He says, yeah, she's grand. She said she's asleep. And I says, God, Stephen, I says, she's Stephen sleeping. She seems to be sleeping a lot. I said, I know she's not well. You're saying she's not well, but it's just, she's sleeping an awful lot. She's exhausted, and as you know yourself, she does be up early in the mornings and she doesn't finish the home until 8 o'clock. I says, oh yeah, I know that, I can understand that. So I just said, okay. I said, what I'll do is, I said, I'll ring in the morning. I said, to see is she okay? I said, won't you look after her for me? He says, yeah, of course I will. He says, I'll make sure she's okay. Don't worry about that.
Stephen said that Mandy's phone was switched off so that her boss wouldn't keep calling her. He promised Anne that he would look after Mandy, and although she was worried about her daughter, Anne believed him when he made that promise.
So the next morning, Sunday morning, I got up and I rang. I kept ringing Mandy's phone, it's off. Kept ringing his phone, off, couldn't get through. And that was going on from 10 o'clock. So I said to Patrick, I said, there's something wrong. I said, I'm going to have to go over to James Street. I said, because this is not like Mandy. I said, she wouldn't even have her phone off for a day. So I was upstairs and I had the radio on. And I heard on the radio, 27-year-old girl found dead in James's Street, 32-year-old man arrested. I just came down the stairs and I said to Patrick, I says, Mandy's dead. He says, what? I says, Mandy's dead. And he says, did you get a phone call? And I says, no. I says, she's dead. On the radio. So he put on the news, the teletext, and he says, that's not Mandy, Anne. And the next door neighbours were in, my friend next door and her partner. They says, that's not Mandy, that's some other girl. I says, I'm telling you now, I says, my daughter's dead. So they went in, and about 10 minutes later, two detectives came up the street and knocked on the door. And that's when I knew. And they told me that he was after strangling her.
Anne was planning on going to Mandy's James Street flat to check on her when she heard on the radio that a 27-year-old woman had been found dead. Anne immediately knew that her daughter had died. Stephen Kearney had called 999 shortly after 10 a.m. that Sunday morning and begged them to come to his apartment, saying, I've killed my girlfriend. I've tried to kill myself. Please come and get me. As the police arrived at Mandy and Stephen's third-floor flat at the Anne Olivia Apartments on James's Street, they found Stephen Kearney crying in the hallway. Garda Paul Maher was one of the first at the scene. Stephen Kearney told the Garda, she's in there, and motioned towards the bedroom.
Yeah, police says he was sitting in the hall crying when they got to the apartment. I says, yeah, I says, it's a bit late now for his tears. I says, he was sat in the hall. The first time he hit me daughter and I went over, he was sitting in the hall crying. And he swore blind to me he'd never hit her again. I says, you better not, Stephen, I says, because next time you put your hands on my child, I says, I'll do time for you. That's why I wouldn't back away. And I'd say in a way he was kind of hoping that I'd back away, but I wouldn't. And that's why I didn't push it too much, because, yeah, I'd have been pushing Mandy away from me.
Garda Maher walked into the room and saw Mandy lying on the floor. Her head was on a pillow and she was covered with a blanket. The Garda then cautioned Kearney, who admitted he'd tried to kill himself, and that he had strangled Mandy on Friday night. While in the back of the patrol car, Kearney said that he had wanted to call someone on Friday, but couldn't. He admitted he went on a drink and drugs binge after killing his long-term girlfriend.
He strangled her on the Friday night. I basically hung up 5 minutes to 10 minutes and he walked in that door and strangled her. He tried to say that was when he walked in he could get the smell of hash. He was locked. And I say Mandy was throwing him out, finishing with him. And that's when he says, well, if I can't have you, nobody can.
Moments after Anne and Mandy had said goodbye and ended their phone call on Friday night, Stephen Kearney walked in the door. He told the Gardaí he could smell smoke and argued with Mandy about it. After he began shouting in her face, he claimed she slapped him and he grabbed her by the throat. Kearney said he strangled Mandy until her face turned blue and then sat crying by her body for 2 hours. He moved her to the bedroom and placed her head on a pillow and covered her body with a blanket before he showered and left the apartment. Kearney claimed that he walked halfway to the local Garda station before backing out and going to the pub instead. He drank with friends and members of his family. He gambled a large amount of money in a bookmaker's, losing thousands but winning thousands too. He told the Gardaí he had spent around €800 on cocaine and stayed with a friend on the Friday night. When he rang Anne on Saturday saying that Mandy was sick and that he would take care of her, he was actually still drinking. Kearney came back to the apartment on Saturday night and slept beside Mandy's body, The next morning, he attempted to take his own life by ingesting a number of medications. He said that he lay beside Mandy, holding her hand and promising to be with her soon, but the overdose did not work. He then rang 999 and confessed.
It's the fact that when I said to him, will you look after her for me? And he said, yeah, of course I will. And knowing all along that my daughter was lying on the floor in the bedroom, dead. The police says, when they brought him into custody, he rang the police and told them this was after being out on a binger. The police were able to trace every movement of him, where he was, who he was with. He met up with his own family and everything. I don't know. I don't know how he didn't turn around and tell a member of his family that he was after doing something. A drink and cocaine binge he went on. And when they brought him to Maynham, they had to bring him to James's. And I said, what's he getting brought to James's for? He tried to commit suicide. But he was only in James's for a couple of hours and then he was brought back. And they charged him with murder. And then he was brought to court the Monday morning and pleaded not guilty.
While in custody, Carney waived his right to counsel. When he was charged with murder, he hired an attorney. His counsel wanted to do an independent autopsy on Mandy, which meant that her family had to wait a further 2 weeks to get her home. Because of the time that had passed since Mandy's death, her family were not allowed to touch her to say goodbye. Steve and Carney had robbed them of that too. Carney had a long criminal history, most of which Mandy's family did not know about. Originally from Dolphin House Flats in Rialto, Dublin, Carney was no stranger to the Gardaí. He had 9 previous convictions. In 1996, he was involved in a group that attacked 2 heroin addicts, Josie Dwyer and Alan Byrne, after attending a meeting of concerned parents against drugs in the area. The gang had approached the men near James's Street and beat, kicked and hit them with weapons. Josie Dwyer died and Carney was charged with manslaughter, but he pleaded guilty to lesser charges and received a 20-month sentence in February 2000. Whilst awaiting that trial, he had become involved with paramilitary groups and an armed robbery in 1998. He had been armed with a shotgun and, along with 5 others, had attempted to steal almost £250,000 from a Securicore van. He received an 8-year sentence for this offence in 1998. It was while he was serving this sentence that he began a relationship with Mandy, who thought he would emerge a changed man. Unfortunately, his behaviour worsened and escalated. The Gardaí were monitoring Carney, but no one knows what goes on behind closed doors.
The detectives, J.J. Kane, I have to say they were very good, very good. Now, they've done their best. Before the trial, I think it was Jim Matthews, the liaison officer, said they were watching him because he was locked up before that for 10 years for attempted armed robbery. And when he got out, they said they were watching him. And I turned around and I said, they weren't watching him hard enough, I said, because he's allowed them to kill my daughter. The words just came out. And they turned around and said, look, we can understand where you're coming from, Mrs. Jenkins, but we can only watch from the outside. We can't watch from the inside. And I apologised. I said, look, I'm sorry. I said, that just came out. This is now we can understand. And I didn't even know it was being watched.
When the trial began in November 2008, Carney denied the murder charge. His defence solicitor, Michael O'Higgins, told the court that Carney admitted he had strangled Mandy and caused her death, but that it was unintentional and he simply snapped. They said that Carney had been at a recruitment office in Inchicore that day, and afterwards drank for the first time in months. He placed some bets and won over €1,000, but he said he blew it all on drink and drugs. It was his position that he returned back to the apartment he shared with Mandy, and when he told her to open some windows to let the smell of smoke out, she told him to fuck off, and he got in her face. In retaliation, she slapped him, and he put his hands around her throat and pulled her to the floor, where he continued to grip her neck until she turned blue. In the guard interviews, he maintained that it had been an accident and that he would regret it for the rest of his life. After getting ready, he left Mandy's body on the bedroom floor and went out on a drink and drug-fueled binge until late Saturday night. All the while, he'd been calling Mandy's mother and texting her friends and co-workers, maintaining the facade that she was still alive, just sleeping off an illness. As the witnesses testified, Carney remained emotionless in his seat. He glared at the witness box, listening intently to the accounts of Gardy and other people who recalled their interactions with him. Anne remembers her experience at the trial.
After ringing and saying that he actually done it, he was trying to get away with manslaughter. And then just we had to go through the whole trial and the whole lot. No remorse, nothing, he just kept sitting there. I'm smiling over at his family and winking over. I had to go up and just 5 minutes, you're called up as a witness to say the fact that he rang me, made that phone call to me. And I have to tell you, it's very hard because he's so close to you. I had to walk by him and sit up and just looking if I was only up there. They just asked you, did he make this phone call to you? And you just say yes, and then you're allowed to back down again. But showed no remorse, nothing.
Dr. Marie Cassidy, the state pathologist, testified that she arrived at the flat on the Sunday morning. It was clear that Mandy had died more than 24 hours earlier, and there was a dark mark around her neck consistent with manual strangulation. A bone in her neck was also broken. Manual strangulation takes sustained force over a prolonged period. It isn't simply lashing out and striking someone.
They said it to him, you could have stopped. It was brought up, you could have stopped there any time. And you didn't. So your intention was to kill her. And basically it was. And then as we were talking to Marie Cassidy, and she says, if it was a fact that if he decided to stop, there's only a certain amount of time or something, but she could have been brain damaged. I said, well, that would have been done, Meg. I'd still had my daughter, I said. I'd have looked after her.
Dr. Dorothy Ramsbottom, a forensic expert, testified that there was DNA found under Mandy's fingernails that was a close match to Carney's DNA, indicating that she had put up a fight. Carney alleged that he didn't mean to do it, and afterwards he was begging her to wake up and slapping her face. When she didn't wake up, he said that's when he knew he'd killed her, and he hid her body under a duvet in the bedroom. He said he spent the next 2 days drinking vodka and taking cocaine to block out what he had done. Mandy had a large sum of money in the flat that couldn't be found after she died. It's likely that Carney used her money to fuel his bender. After a 4-day trial, Carney was found guilty by the jury of 8 men and 4 women. Michael O'Higgins for the defence read a statement written by Carney in which he said he panicked after he killed Mandy, and he wished he could change things. As with every convicted murderer in Ireland, Stephen Carney received a life sentence.
I mean, the sentence in this country is 18 years is not enough. It should be brought up to 25 to 30 years. My life has changed from the day they told me that my daughter was dead. It's changed completely. I could be sitting down 1 minute and I'd say, I'd better go into the bedroom. I'd be at home, I'd go into the bedroom, I have to get something. And by the time I go into the bedroom, I forgot what I have to go in for. It's just constantly thinking of him and what he done. It just eats away at you. I don't do Christmas, I don't do birthdays, I don't do anything. I don't celebrate anything. And I just broke down crying. Like, it normally take me a few days to pick myself up between Mandy's birthday and their anniversary. But for some reason, I don't know whether it's because of the virus or what, that everything just got in on top of me and I just couldn't pick myself up. I just can't get that motivation back into me. I said, I know to say, I do even write in me letters, and I'll never be a grandmother. I never seen Mandy walk down the aisle. He took that from me. But I'd skip all that, I said, just to have Mandy back. Becoming a grandparent wouldn't bother me. Or seeing Mandy getting married wouldn't bother me. Just to have my daughter back on the cert, I said I'd give anything. It's hard. It's very hard. My flat is like a shrine. There's just photographs of Mandy. And I talk to her every morning, and I talk to her every night. And the last thing I say every night before I go to sleep is goodnight. I had to kiss her little chain with a photograph on it. I had to kiss that and I say, good night, Mandy, love you. Watch over me. I'd be saying to myself, I'd be saying to the child, watch over me. And then in the next breath, I'd say, please God, don't let me wake up in the morning. I just want to be with my daughter. That's every night with me. I just don't want to wake up in the mornings. But I do, unfortunately. We're doing a life sentence. Anybody that's went through, not the perpetrator, they seem to have more rights than we do.
Mandy's uncle Robert read a victim impact statement to the court describing Mandy and their life after the loss of her. He spoke about how Mandy's mother was unrecognisable in her grief for her only child. He thanked the court and those involved, but felt as though it was a hollow victory. No sentence would bring back Mandy or undo the pain caused by Stephen Carney.
It's very hard to be here without her. It's hard for me. And I'm only her cousin. I have 2 sisters. What's me at the anger? She has me, she has the rest of the family. But we're nothing. She should have her daughter and I should have my cousin. She was good, she was so, just, I don't know, because it's just the same as me, it's just like a twin sister. A twin sister, that's what she'd like. Now I have a sister named of the same age as myself. I have 2 of them actually. Michelle and Anne-Marie. I love them to bits. But don't tell them this. I love Mandy more. And I still do. And to be totally honest with you, my soul went with Mandy that day. The only thing that keeps me strong is how strong my Auntie Anne is.
Carney's solicitors launched an appeal against his conviction for Mandy's murder just weeks later. They appealed on the grounds that evidence was admitted that was prejudicial against Carney, including some of his interview with Gardaí and photographs taken by crime scene technicians of Mandy while she was lying on the bedroom floor. The court found that the evidence was probative and rightfully admitted into the trial, and his appeal was refused. Just 13 years after killing Amanda Jenkins, Stephen Carney has been up for parole twice already. He has been granted neutral venue visits with his family in secret locations in Dublin. Anne has written her 3rd letter to the parole board to appeal to them to refuse his application.
Where's the justice that allows all this to happen? I mean, you're writing these letters in. Mine went in, I think it was the end of March, April, and I'm still waiting. And that's hanging over me now since my letter went in. Like, waiting for the postman to come. Is this going to be the day? Like, what's going to happen? Is he going to get parole? Is he not going to get parole? It's just a constant waiting game. The last 2 letters were about him. Well, weren't about, basically, it was only a little bit about him. But it was all about what he done, what he took from me and what I lost out on. And the last letter I sent in was basically all about him, how I felt about him, what lies he's been, the parole board. I'd love to be sitting there in front of the parole board when he's getting told whether he's getting it or not, to see what lies he's been. And I did say it in the letter, this man will never be rehabilitated, which I also found out his last girlfriend got a lucky, I believe he used to bash her, and I didn't know that. And I wrote her in the letter, I said, your last girlfriend got a lucky escape. And no woman will ever be safe if he gets out of prison. Please, don't let him out.
Anne would like more transparency in the parole process and greater support for victims' families, At the minute, a convicted murderer in Ireland can apply for parole after serving just 7 years of a sentence. The 2019 Parole Act will increase this to 12 years. It will also introduce an independent parole board. It has been over a year since the Act was passed and it is yet to be put into action. There needs to be a balance for the rights of those bereaved by homicide. Mandy Jenkins was a beautiful, kind, caring young woman who had so much more life left to live. Anne has said if there's anything that someone can take from the tragedy of what happened to her daughter, it should be that those in abusive or toxic relationships should leave before they get hurt and before it's too late. We'll have a list of supports in our show notes.
Thanks very much. And make sure every word that's being said between me or Anne are used wisely. Used for the good or to save someone's life. Because that man should not be let out of prison. Unfortunately, we know he has to come out at some stage. But the day he walks out of prison, I know that's the day my auntie Anne will die. Because that will break her heart to see him walking around them streets. So please, just do the best you can. Because I wouldn't like to see any harm come to anyone, no matter what they done. And I know it's my cousin he killed, but I wouldn't like his life to be took as well. So please keep me there as long as you can.
Anne is a mother with unconditional love for her daughter. Stephen Carney took her future from her and her reason for being. Anne is supported by her family and friends and lives close to where Mandy worked. She has plenty of memories of her daughter, but she should have been able to make more. Changes have to be made to the system, and implementing the Parole Act would be a start. Thank you for listening to this episode of Crime Labs. Crime Labs is an independent podcast that is funded in part by our generous Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show and want to help us keep it going, you can join us on patreon.com/crimelabs. And in exchange for your pledge, you'll get access to early release ad-free episodes, bonus content, and exclusive merchandise. You can also support the show by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. You can keep up to date with us on social media at Crime Labs on Instagram and Facebook, and at Crime Labs Pod on Twitter. Stay safe.